Welcome in, everybody. I don't want to talk about Deebo Samuel for all too long. I know he's been traded away to Washington. I don't think that this should be all that shocking or complicated, but there does seem to be an undercurrent of malicious negativity coming out toward Deebo Samuel that is wholly unnecessary and not reflective of how this actual situation went down with Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and the 49ers. Just a few minutes ago, Deebo Samuel tweeted, "The 49ers know where I stand with them, and it's nothing but love. Love John and Kyle to death. No bad blood, no way, shape, or form. They know I'm more than appreciative of everything they've done for me as a player and a man. Nothing but love," with a heart emoji. And also, in response to all this 20 pounds overweight stuff, Deebo tweeted 225 to be exact. "Can't wait till this season starts. Fresh start, new Deebo in this season." Listen, we know that Deebo Samuel wasn't in his best shape and his best condition at the end of the last season because he literally checked into the hospital with pneumonia in October. I would love to see the average person deal with pneumonia in the middle of an NFL season and then have to go play NFL games, especially the way that Deebo Samuel has to play those NFL games. So all of this stuff that people are just, talking about online back and forth, oh, this is so terrible. Deebo Samuel, his play fell off in 2024. Well, there are reasons behind that. And the reasons behind that are part of life. Sometimes things just don't go the way that you plan them to go, and they can be outside of your control. And this is not the first time that we've seen a star player leave an NFL team because time was up, because circumstances changed. It's not that shocking. It isn't as deep as a lot of people are trying to make this on social media. This is the 5-step progression of what happened. Why don't we just summarize this once and for all? The 49ers actually got solid value out of Deebo Samuel's contract. I'm talking about the new contract. I'm not talking about the 2021 rookie deal, all-pro season Deebo Samuel. The 49ers, all things considered, they ended up paying him $58 million over the 3 seasons since he signed the deal in 2022. If you divide 58 by 3, that comes out to be about $19 million per year. Okay, so Deebo Samuel, and that ranks number 24 out of all wide receivers now. So Deebo Samuel was paid in the 20s over the life of this deal. Because remember that the receiver market absolutely blew up at around the time that Deebo Samuel signed his contract in 2022. So the 49ers ended up paying out $58 million in cash, about $19 million per year. That ranked number 24. And all told, between his receiving yardage and his rushing yardage and his kick return yardage, he averaged over 1,000 yards per season. That is not bad value. It's not great value. It's not terrible value. Sometimes what is just is. Like that was it. Like there were no clear winner of the deal. There was no clear loser of the deal. Plus, Deebo Samuel was making relatively nothing for the 2021 performance that was out of this world. So you often see players get retroactively paid in the NFL, but it's not like his new contract completely busted. I mean, it was a run-of-the-mill deal, and the 49ers had an escape hatch after 2 years of the extension, and they took the escape hatch. They traded Deebo Samuel to Washington. 2 is that the 49ers were already plotting cost efficiency at wide receiver last year at this time. When they drafted Ricky Pearsall in 2024 with pick number 31, it was very clear where this was headed in the wide receiver room. That brings us to number 3. It was going to have to be a rip-roaring season from Deebo Samuel in 2024 for him to be back in 2025. Because when you saw the 49ers use the first-round pick on Ricky Pearsall, even though Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings were all still under contract with the football team, it was clear there was going to be an odd man out after the 2024 season. Yes, they could keep all of them on board, and they did keep all of them on board for that 2024 season. But if that didn't yield a Super Bowl, and even if it did yield a Super Bowl, I think that it was abundantly obvious that they were going to move on from one of their more expensive wide receivers in 2025. So the way that Deebo Samuel was going to keep himself on the inside of that picture was going to be an awesome 2024 performance. If he showed up and he delivered, maybe not as 2021 Deebo, but if he delivered as something between 2021 Deebo and 2024 Deebo, just even 2022, 2023 plus performances, a little bit more than those couple of years, he would have theoretically forced the 49ers' hand, and they would have said, okay, we're going to keep him through the length of this deal that was signed in 2022, and we'll probably tack on some extra years. We'll probably try to re-sign him. But we all know what happened after that. He actually entered 2024, and there's a lot of revisionist history out there, people just ignoring this part of history. Deebo Samuel actually entered 2024 in great physical shape. Remember, Brandon Ayuk was holding in, and then Brandon Ayuk, when he did start playing in week 1, didn't look like he was in great shape. Deebo Samuel, meanwhile, he was the polar opposite. He was at every single 49ers offseason event. He was there throughout all of training camp. We were talking about how slim Deebo looked, how good a shape he was in. And then I remember a tough running touchdown in week 1 against the Jets, the game where the 49ers kicked the 6 field goals. Well, touchdown early in that game came from Deebo Samuel, just trucking, dragging defenders into the end zone. It was impressive stuff from Deebo Samuel in week 1. Week 2 at Minnesota, 110 receiving yards for Deebo Samuel. So, he was fine early in the season. But then the bad breaks came. He hurt his oblique in that week 2 game against Minnesota. And then in week 7, he came down with pneumonia. Following that week 7 game against the Chiefs, where Deebo Samuel was unable to continue, he was hospitalized. Again, let me circle back to this. If any average, ordinary Joe is hospitalized with pneumonia, I would not expect them to resume in all normalcy in their life, probably for several weeks, especially when it comes to their athletic endeavors. Deebo Samuel's not an average Joe. He's an NFL player. You talk to anybody who's been hospitalized with pneumonia, and they tell you it's taken me a little while to get fully back. That, I can't think of two more devastating situations when it comes to the ability to work out while outwardly looking like you still can work out. I get it. Like if you shatter your leg and you're in a cast, everybody knows you can't work out and you can't play. But as far as two conditions or two things that can happen to a player that can compromise their ability to work out that outwardly don't appear to be compromising that ability, but really do, I can't think of two things that are more devastating than an oblique injury, which impacts absolutely everything. That happened to Deebo Samuel in week 2 against Minnesota, and then literal pneumonia, which happened in week 7. So the fact that his play lagged moving forward, the fact that, maybe he wasn't able to stay in the best shape, I think it makes a whole lot of sense given what Deebo Samuel went through. So sometimes life just happens, and it doesn't happen the way that you charted it out, doesn't happen the way that you planned it. In fact, these struggles for Deebo Samuel in the 2024 season were emblematic of the 49ers struggles. So many things went wrong for the 49ers outside of their control. So many things went awry of the plan. They wanted to get back to the Super Bowl and win it. They didn't. They went 6-11. So Deebo's struggles were representative of the struggles that the 49ers faced as a team. So it all led to what we saw this weekend. Deebo Samuel traded to Washington. Prior to that, he requested the trade. The 49ers very quickly obliged that trade request because they felt that the time for a parting of ways had come. And guess what? This isn't the first time an NFL star has parted ways with his team. It's far from the first time that's happened. It has happened in the past. It's going to continue to happen in the future. This is the way of life in the NFL. They call it not for long for a reason. This is the nature of the league. And in the case of Deebo Samuel, it went from the high of the 2023 season, the NFC Championship game that year, all the way to the trade to the Washington Commanders. 49ers moved on from Deebo Samuel. So this is the first time an NFL team has parted ways with a star player, just really the way it is. And I think that the more quickly people just accept that this is the way of life in the NFL and just look at the production that Deebo Samuel did bring the 49ers and realize that nothing is forever, especially for a player who is delivered with that kind of style, the happier you'll be, the better you'll be able to understand how all these machinations work. You know, one of the worst takes, and it keeps on popping up over and over and over again, is this disbelief that the 49ers restructured Deebo Samuel's contract before the 2024 season. And the take that I see over and over is, why did they do that? Why, this is a terrible move. They restructured his deal for no reason. And it's a brain dead take because it's completely incorrect. The restructure of Deebo Samuel's contract did absolutely nothing negative for the 49ers. So it's people hopping onto a situation, looking for negativity, manufacturing negativity, and then making complete idiots out of themselves by trying to use the restructure when they don't know how the salary cap works, trying to use the restructure as some kind of argument of wrongdoing by one of the sides in this whole Deebo Samuel situation. Well, guess what? All the restructure was a conversion of base salary money that the 49ers were going to pay Deebo Samuel anyway in 2024 into a signing bonus so they could have more cap flexibility. It did absolutely nothing negative for the 49ers. Dead money was going to be dead money and was going to hit at the same time regardless because they traded him after the season. Didn't make it harder to trade Deebo Samuel. Didn't make it easier to trade Deebo Samuel. 2024 books already passed us. We're going to be on the 2025 books once this trade is consummated. And I think that the people who are trying to sound really smart, I call it fake smart, in their analysis of this situation should probably just leave all of this talk behind in 2024 as well. And they'll be a lot better for it. So it really isn't that deep. This is just one of those things that happens in the NFL. Guy plays really good football. Team and player individually run into some adversity. Happened to both Deebo and the 49ers this year. That adversity proves too much to overcome. You reevaluate your situation a year later or after that adversity is something that happened to the team and the player. And when you reevaluate the situation, you say, okay, I think it's time for a parting of ways. The fact that Adam Peters, who obviously is familiar with Deebo Samuel, wanted to send a draft pick to the 49ers for Deebo means that, what Deebo was saying up on social media definitely has some legitimacy to it. The 49ers, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, appreciated what they got from him. There's no bad blood here. There's just a recognition that in a gladiatorial sport, sometimes that physical success is ephemeral. And Adam Peters believes that with a fresh start from Deebo Samuel, he can get some productivity. I highly doubt that he's going to be the same player that he was in 2021. But if he's the player that he was in 2022 or 2023, then the Washington Commanders will be more than happy. Meanwhile, it's business from the 49ers side. We know that they're looking to build around Brock Purdy. We know that Deebo Samuel's style is different. We know that he's more of a bulldozer than a separator. Didn't separate well at all, but that doesn't mean he was a bad player. In fact, he was a sensational player for a long time with the 49ers. But San Francisco is going to look elsewhere. In fact, they had already effectively replaced Deebo Samuel if you watch the final two games of the 2024 season. Ricky Pearsall had 18 targets. He was functionally a much bigger part of the offense at that point than Deebo was. And that's all that, she wrote. That's we saw what happened in the final 2 weeks of the season. We know that Deebo requested the trade at the time of his exit interview, and we know that the 49ers were happy to oblige it. If anything, it's been a positive turn of events for the 49ers because they were indeed able to secure the draft pick. They were indeed able to secure the fifth rounder, which is actually the Commanders' early fifth rounder. It came from the New Orleans Saints in the Lattimore trade. So the 49ers are getting a higher level fifth rounder, which is, I think, a notable difference level of value from a lower level fifth rounder. It's pick number 148. It wasn't guaranteed that they were going to get draft compensation because I think it was made clear to the rest of the NFL that the 49ers were going to part ways with Deebo Samuel regardless of if they got a trade offer or not. So other teams could have easily waited the 49ers out for a release and then tried to sign Deebo Samuel. But Washington said, hey, Adam Peters, familiar with this player, scouted this player in 2019, saw him star in 2021, do massive things in 2022 and 2023, even though the overall numbers weren't the same as they were in 2021. And Adam Peters said, I want to cut in line. I'll send a fifth round pick to the 49ers. And we know what the 49ers have done with fifth round picks. So in that way, it was a positive development for both sides. And as you can tell, there are not hard feelings between Deebo Samuel, Kyle Shanahan, and John Lynch. Lynch said the same thing the other day, but Deebo did not have to go out and tweet this stuff. And I think that he felt compelled to tweet it because there's just so much malicious negativity. And I think that a lot of it is just delivered without context. Yes, everybody's acknowledging that he had a bad year. I was more critical of Deebo Samuel than anybody this past season because I don't think taking pot shots at players is criticism. First off, right? I think that unsubstantiated negative talk without data to back it up, without context to back it up, that's not criticism. Those are just cheap shots. But as far as like actual criticism goes, saying, hey, Deebo Samuel only averaged 3.2 yards per carry this year. It didn't seem that he had the same kind of sudden, I don't want to say he had his burst because we saw it on the kick returns, but he didn't have the same sudden violence. It looked like maybe the strength was down a little bit at times, which does correspond with the theory that the pneumonia and the oblique injury hurt his ability to work out. But he didn't have the same suddenness and violence to push through defenders toward the end of the season. Occasionally, he'd be able to do it. We saw it against Miami. But anyway, pointing out that his reception success rate was way down, which is what I did over the course of the season, from 56% to 40%. That's the percentage of efficient receptions. That was fair. I mean, this is all stuff that we talked about over the course of the season. But if you deliver that without mentioning that, yes, he was really good in training camp and he was really good over the first 2 weeks, and then he hurt his injury. Then he hurt his oblique. That's when the oblique injury came. And if you mention all that without saying on top of the oblique injury, he was hospitalized for pneumonia in week 7, and that probably had something to do with all this, then you're not telling the full story. So I'm sitting here and I'm happy to tell the full story. I don't think that this is something that is deep to the level of Deebo Samuel just, quit on the 49ers and he's overpaid and he didn't live up to his contract. No, this was the natural course of events in the NFL, and the 49ers moved on after, some shit hit the fan for Deebo Samuel and for the team in 2024, and they were not able to overcome it. Anyway, that's the update. That's Deebo Samuel online, and he promises that his weight was 225 pounds. I think that whole discussion is so irrelevant, by the way, because we know that he had pneumonia and we know that he had an oblique injury. We know that those two things impact how you can work out. And over the course of a long marathon of an NFL season, you're not going to be in as great of shape at the end of it if you've had pneumonia and you've had an oblique injury that compromises your ability to work out. Yeah, I just wish that, the people commenting on social media, I'm going to look into questions here in a little bit and we'll talk a little bit more, but I just wish that the discourse would be a little more acknowledging of perspective in the NFL, that we see this kind of stuff happen on a year in, year out basis. It's not the first time, and it definitely won't be the last that we've seen a player's performance trail off due to some circumstances out of his control. And, if Deebo Samuel goes to Washington, it will not be and succeeds. It will not be the first time, and it won't be the last time that a player delivers a positive uptick in his play after a change of scenery. It could very well happen, and it could very well happen against the 49ers. And you know what's going to happen then is people will start kicking and screaming. The very same people that are saying they had to trade Deebo Samuel now will start criticizing the 49ers, saying they should have never traded him. Well, guess what? Changes of scenery work. They often work, right? And I think the goal for the 49ers and the goal for the Commanders and for Deebo Samuel is that he does go on and have a good career. Like, everybody wants to be happy in this situation, and they can be. You execute a trade thinking that both sides can win. Otherwise, you don't execute the trade, right? So the 49ers hope that whomever they pick with number 148 turns into a star player. We're going to be tracking that player's career very closely. We'll always link him back to the pick that the 49ers acquired for Deebo Samuel. And then we'll follow Deebo Samuel. And if the 49ers get a star out of 148, and if Deebo Samuel has a nice little resurgence as a member of the Washington Commanders, looks like both sides will have won. And the 49ers will have gotten their cost efficiency as well, because pick number 148 is going to be a whole lot cheaper on the salary cap than Deebo Samuel's final year under contract. Mike has a good stat here. Deebo Samuel struggled massively after the catch when aligned out wide. Oh, this is good. So yards after the catch per reception when aligned as a outside wide receiver, Deebo Samuel in 2020, 8.4, 2021, 8.9, 2022, 8.5, 2023, 8.2, and in 2024, cut in half, essentially, to 4.7. It was obvious that he was not fully himself. He had some straight line burst, which we saw on the kick returns, a couple nice kick returns over the season, including that one on Green Bay. But I just didn't think that as far as yards after the catch go and the way that Deebo plays, that speed combined with the physicality led to a certain suddenness, a certain violence. It just simply wasn't there, and the numbers flesh it out. Also down from 6.1 yards per carry to just 3.2 yards per carry. Now, a lot of this stuff could be because of the 49ers loss of Brandon Ayuk, the loss of Christian McCaffrey. There's less space on the field. So there's multiple different factors that go behind these things. So it's often hard to gauge exactly what went wrong for a player, or if something did go wrong for a player. But I think that in the case of Deebo Samuel, physically, he wasn't fully what he had been before. And it was a drastic drop-off in some of the metrics that definitely pointed to that. This show is brought to you by Public Rec. Public Rec, they make the Game Changer pants, which are like sweatpants, but they're also nice. You can wear them to a meeting. You can wear them to a company meeting, but they're as comfortable as sweatpants. Public Rec sent me a pair of the Game Changer pants, and I absolutely loved them. It's a proprietary blend of performance materials. So it's the perfect combination of breathability and stretch while still holding its form. You'll never want to take them off. Comfortable enough for the couch, sharp enough for the city. For a limited time, you can get 20% off at Public Rec by using the code Lombardi at checkout. Just head to publicrec.com, use the code Lombardi, and you're all set. Oh, and when they ask you how you found them, be sure to mention our show. It really helps us out. Upgrade to Public Rec and feel the difference. Tim asks, who's taking Deebo Samuel's place next year? I think the 49ers are comfortable with younger players. Tim Kawakami today had an article, and he mentioned that the 49ers are comfortable with the players already on their roster. That doesn't mean that they're going to avoid adding somebody. I've always said Darius Slayton could be a good mid-tier veteran. Elijah Moore, if they're looking for more short area quickness, just really depends on what type of skill set the 49ers want. Maybe they even draft a receiver. But let's just focus on what they already have and how they played to end the 2024 season. And as I just said 5 minutes ago, Ricky Pearsall was targeted 18 times over the final 2 games. This is a vote of confidence in Ricky Pearsall, even in somebody like Isaac Guerrero, who was catching the ball out of the backfield for the 49ers. Tim today also mentioned Tariq Owens, who was a nice piece of the 49ers practice squad last year as a rookie. Tariq is the son of Terrell Owens, so I think 49ers fans will be really interested in his future. I do think that they still have work to do at the receiver position. We can talk about Brandon Ayuk as well. I've told you guys that it's very unlikely that they trade him, even though they're open to it if they get big-time compensation for Brandon Ayuk, which I don't think they're going to get this offseason. So Ayuk, hopefully for the 49ers, will be back. That's going to be picking up some slack that was very, very noticeable last year when he wasn't at 100% and he also was hurt at the same time that Deebo Samuel had pneumonia. That was a really, really bad week for 49ers receivers, although it was the beginning of the Ricky Pearsall era. Remember, Ricky's first game was against the Chiefs when Deebo had pneumonia and Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL. Yeah, and the whole rebuilding discussion is also really stupid. NFL teams are constantly rebuilding. So Mike has a great point here. You can win and you get to rebuild. I get it. There's this stigma with the word rebuild, and people assume that it means that a team is just tanking for the season and they're not in the playoff race. Guys, do you realize how often these rosters turn over? There are transactions basically every week, but you're going to be lucky to have 50% of your team back from the prior year, no matter how well you did the prior year. You'll have a core, but the build outside of the core on these teams is constantly shifting. So the 49ers are obviously changing the way that they do things. There's a recalibration happening here as far as cash spent goes, but it's because they were trying to cram in a Super Bowl and it didn't work. They were just throwing cash at problems at some point here over the past 2 years. And obviously they couldn't kick the door down and win that Super Bowl. So now they're looking around the rest of the league and they see that the Buffalo Bills cut back on spending big time. They even let Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, their top two receivers, out the door, and they were right back at the AFC Championship game. You look at the Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, they let guys walk after losing a Super Bowl to the Chiefs, including Javon Hargrave, who coincidentally signed with the 49ers. And maybe it's not a coincidence. Maybe that illustrates that the Eagles were going the cost-efficient route and the 49ers were going the let's spend money on everything route. One of those teams has won a Super Bowl recently. That's the Eagles. They're the defending champions. So, yes, while the Eagles were running a cost-efficient retool, they won a Super Bowl, and they looked dominant while doing it. Another great example, the Los Angeles Rams, who won the 49ers' own division this past year. The Rams, with the lowest defensive spend in all of football, won the NFC West. And now they're about to get rid of Cooper Kupp. They were seriously flirting with the idea of letting Matthew Stafford walk out the door because Stafford wanted a little too much money for their taste. They ended up negotiating. They found middle ground. We don't know what the details are yet on the Stafford deal, but obviously the Rams were able to lock him in at a price that they're comfortable with. Otherwise, they wouldn't have agreed to this. So the Rams are retooling. They're still winning. The Eagles retooled. They won a Super Bowl. The Bills have retooled. They're back and in the playoffs as Super Bowl contenders. I thought they were going to win the whole thing there for a while in the 2024 season. This league is a league of constant retooling, constant rebuilding. And the teams that can continue winning even while doing that, those are the teams that become perennial powers. And we'll see if the 49ers can continue winning while doing that. They've already done it once before, 2021. That team was retooling on the fly. That was 2021, 2022 were wild years for the 49ers because you were literally trying to make a seismic shift at the quarterback position, amongst other things, right? They were trying to integrate Trey Lance into the fold. It didn't work for a number of reasons. That was another example of shit hitting the fan. The finger injury against the Raiders in the preseason week 3 of 2021 really derailed a lot. Then, of course, the ankle injury in 2022. 49ers adapted as they went. Jimmy Garoppolo was really handy to have him around for that football team. But then Jimmy got hurt, and multiple times that ended up spelling the end of his tenure. And toward the end of all that in 21 and 2022, Brock Purdy stepped in out of nowhere, pick number 262, and this is where we're at now. So this is an unpredictable journey. It's always that way. The league is wild. The league is set up for parity. The league is set up for those who operate on their toes and not on their heels. Stanley says the 49ers still have the 6th best odds to win the Super Bowl this year. And we haven't even reached free agency. We haven't reached the draft, and the draft is going to be the lifeblood for this 49ers team. They need some young talent to be infused before the 2025 season starts. Thomas says 4 straight years we were rolling on top. One bad year and folks are tripping. 49ers are still top 10 to go to the Super Bowl. Yes, I mean, keep it simple and actually let the offseason play out before you know what the roster is going to look like next year. This, the Deebo Samuel backlash to all this happening and, just mud being thrown in all kinds of different directions. It's so funny to me because we knew exactly this would happen. Like if you were listening, if you're paying attention, you knew exactly what has happened, would happen. And I'm talking not just this offseason. I'm talking back to 2024. As soon as they drafted Pearsall, we said they're going to try to keep the gang together for 2024, but look out in 2025. 25 hits. Deebo requests the trade. 49ers oblige it. So for 3 weeks, we're saying, okay, he's going to get traded. And I get it that you have people kind of muddying the waters of the discussion. You had people, even ESPN, trying to swoop in and say, oh, they're not going to trade him because it's too big of a dead cap hit. But if you just calm down, you breathe, you look at the salary cap situation, you realize that the restructure had absolutely nothing to do with his tradability. If you actually study this kind of stuff at any bit of a deeper level, then you would have known that if they found a trade partner, they were going to trade Deebo Samuel. They found the trade partner. What did we say? About a 5th round pick? Yep. 5th round pick is what they got for Deebo Samuel. All of this followed the charted path. Like if you looked at the clues, you looked at what the 49ers were saying, you studied how this team was operating all the way back to 2024. And even before then, you could have said that all of this would happen and you wouldn't be surprised when it actually did. Then it actually happens and people seem to lose their minds. And it's like, calm down, step away. It ain't that deep. It is the circle of life in the NFL. All right. I think the Warriors are on now. Let's go check out the basketball game. I'll talk to you guys a little bit later this evening. Thanks for watching.